Mind-blowing presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank
Don't
you.
go away. May I encourage you to make yourself comfortable on the farthest
Absolutely.
corner of the stage, because we're going to broaden out the discussion now to have a proper debate on some of those questions that Ramez has thrown in front of us. Do we agree with him, by the way, here in the room? Surely shipping is the exception to what he was saying. I'm going to invite up to the stage the CDO, Chief Digital Officer of TechnipFMC, Ann-Christin Andersen. Where are you, Ann-Christin? Please do come and join us. Make yourself comfortable right here in the middle. And CEO and President of Torvald Klaveness, Lasse Kristoffersen. Lasse, welcome. So Ramez has thrown so much at us, right? Now, we have got time to digest it. They don't. I want your quick responses. Is it really going to happen that the shipping industry is going to be disrupted in this way by the, what do you call it, the democratization of technology? Ann-Christin?
I think shipping is not one industry. So, of course, parts of the shipping industry is really subject to disruption. And if you are not having a domain knowledge that is useful for value creation, you will certainly be disrupted by pirates. So, but there's a spread in the field here, and I think we need not to underestimate the importance of the domain knowledge of this industry.
And you think that domain knowledge is going to protect shipping, whichever bit one happens to be in, from the kind of thing Ramez was talking to us about, the space launches, for instance, where the prices come down so much. I mean, if the most asset-heavy industry probably on Earth could be transformed in that way over the last few decades, what's going to happen to shipping?
But to remember that the shipping industry is already dealing with disruption. It's subject to a very cyclic demand profile, so it goes up and down. It's a very risky business that the industry has managed to adapt to, but it has to really absorb digital technologies at a much higher speed, because that is the only way to remain competitive and get the productivity gains that you need, and also address the environmental problems that is going to hit this industry.
Lasse Kristoffersen, what kind of disruptions can you see facing?
Well, thank you first, Ramez, for killing our industry.
I'm just the messenger.
I mean, not only the technology, but we're not going to move any petrol, not coal, not cars, nothing. So that's a good start for the discussion, I guess. But it's on the other hand, I think what really encourages me is the fact that our industry has just started on this journey, right? And really what opened my eyes was 3-4 years ago when I went to the CEO summit, and every other industry talked about disruption and technology. And I figured out either I have to change the industry or we need to do it ourselves. So the good news is that in our industry, we are just at the verge of using new technology. And in our company and in our strategy, we believe there are two factors that will create new value. One is the transition of energy, short-term in energy efficiency, long-term in climate neutral, and obviously how you use technology to solve new problems. And that's really where we focus on transforming our company. And I don't really like this disruption thing. I mean, that sounds like something that comes to you and kills you. This is really a transition that you need to look upon. So disruption, you can't do anything about. Transition, you can manage.
Yeah, but Ramez was also saying you have to disrupt yourself, right?
Indeed, yes.
So what do you think that the shipping industry should be taking? Given that there are these huge moves, maybe market share collapsing, lots of new technologies, what guidance would you give?
Well, I think Ann-Christin is totally right that using technology to have more efficiencies, to more effectively use the assets that are there. But I think people are going to still use ships to move goods. Ships are the most efficient way to move goods on planet Earth. That will not change. But as the mix of cargoes changes, as some cargoes goes down, you have to look for growth opportunities outside of the traditional shipping industry. And maybe it's offshore wind. Maybe there's a way for fishing fleets to assist in aquaculture in some way. Maybe it's things that I don't know about. But you have to look for some adjacencies, and those are the areas of growth, even if the core of the shipping industry remains more or less similar.
Go on, Lasse.
Yeah, and I think there are two types of adjacency. One is, of course, to look into another industry. Another one is to look into a customer to see what more problems can I solve for this customer using technology we didn't have 5-10 years ago.
Absolutely.
And I think that's even more important. And in my view, the most important.
So what are you doing in that regard?
Well, what we did was we started Klaveness Digital a few years back, really looking at, I mean, the way we work with our absolute best customers, what do we really do for them? Actually, we manage their business. We help them to succeed. And we see now we can use technology to empower our customers to do the job we do. And we can do that at scale. And we can help thousands of customers with the same technology instead of having one person helping one customer.
Okay,
So really
I didn't get that, sorry. So, bulk carriers, right?
Yes.
Klaveness. So how have you used digital in the last 4 years, since you went on this journey, to empower your customers? What has actually meant? What's changed for them?
What we have done is that we have built a solution called Cargo Value. So what we sat down with was let's say we're doing a lot of business with the aluminium smelters in the Middle East. And what we figured out was that when we help these customers with our contracts, we try to make them give them information so they're always updated, avoid demurrage in the port, ensure throughput in the port, so that they can have minimal cost of the logistics. Up until 5-10 years ago, we didn't have technology where we could really support that digital. Now, with the AIS on vessels, there is full transparency on every vessel and where it is. So basically what we have done is we've built a platform where our customers now use Cargo Value to manage their inventory and manage their logistics in a way they couldn't do 5 or 10 years ago. And for us to do that, we have to create a separate company, because at the same time we can't tell them that you need to transport with us. Because suddenly then you lose all credibility. So this is...
So the separate company could one day be a threat to you, or...
It is already.
The baby might have... We'll come back to that in a minute. Ann-Christin.
Yeah, no, I want to contrast some of the examples that Ramez brought up with something that's happening in the shipping industry, and not the easy cargo movement of goods. But
go for it.
But I'd like to say that, you know, in a B2C environment where you're the Ubers or whatever, you need very little domain knowledge, but you need a lot of digital competency. You know, a Google search, you say, you know, how many clicks on my page, what's the history of that, etc. And then you throw a lot of analytics on it, and you can really explore a value vacancy and become a pirate, like we heard earlier today. In our domain, if you have a complex business, the value vacancy is not so easy to get. You really have to scope the problem you're trying to solve and try and get away from the past on how you actually solve that problem. What is the value for the customer? You know, if I have a small fleet or vessels that I want to transport goods on, maybe I'm better served of being in a new business model with a large fleet management solution that Lasse talked about. And that's now possible through technology. But you have to inject that new technology in solving really concrete problems.
So do you agree with that, Ramez? That in an asset-heavy, complex value chain, B2B type of business like shipping, the amount of value you can add with analytics is more limited?
I don't exactly. I mean, I will say this. I believe people will still use ships to move goods around, without a doubt. And I'm not saying that the asset-heavy industries are dead. They're not. But the new industries, the new digital, primarily industries, build on top, and they are the fastest areas of growth. And so I think what you're saying, Lasse, if I understood it, is creating a new business to be able to explore that. I think that's quite smart, actually, because that new business will need different talent, have a different way to growth, a different capital structure. Yes. So in addition to the digital transformation inside the industry to create more efficiencies, I think that's a good way to reach these new types of market opportunities.
So I was reading the TechnipFMC website, Ann-Christin, you'll be glad to know I did some research, and I saw a cool project called Deep Purple, I think it's called. I'm not quite sure why it's called Deep Purple, but listening to Ramez talking about adjacencies and moving into adjacent areas, it struck me that maybe this is an adjacency that TechnipFMC is exploring.
So obviously, TechnipFMC being in the oil and gas business, but our capability, our domain knowledge is not necessarily only helping our customers produce oil and gas. We can also do large marine operations, doing offshore wind projects, and we also believe that one of the energy sources for the future will be hydrogen, because you need to store. I don't believe batteries will take over all the storage potential in the world, and I definitely think hydrogen can be a great source of energy for also this industry. industry. So the Deep Purple project is basically about storing excess energy from offshore wind or solar in somewhere that you can actually use it for later. And hydrogen, storing it deep on the seabed, and hydrogen being purple, and Deep Purple being quite a good group.
I think that's
I'll never forget it now. Okay.
Yes.
That's a good, and I'm sure we will hear later on today as well about the new ways of feeding new vessels if you're going to do, because I think a big transformation that needs to happen in the shipping industry, aided by digital, is definitely going towards a no emission industry.
Right. So, okay, so here we are. We, in different ways, are more or less agreed that increased digitization is going to increase efficiencies, it could open up new markets, and it's unavoidable, right? So how do you create a digital strategy in a business which, after all, is not known for digitization? So can I ask you that, Lasse? Where did you begin 4 years ago when you thought, oh, I see the light?
Yes. Well, the way we started was we thought we had a technology issue. We need to learn technology. That was not really the issue. The issue was learn agility. And how do we actually work with, I mean, exactly as you said, how do you work with identifying problems worth solving? How do you work with customers, testing ideas? And I think we were going from 1 year budgets and long projects down to 2 week sprints, and basically looking at, okay, in 2 weeks we're going out to this customer, we're gonna make a mock-up and test, is this something that would solve your problem or not? So what we really learned when we brought in a new team of technologists was not technology, but agility. And I think that's key. And I think you need to create agility on 3 levels in your company. One is, you need to look at what are the problems you can solve for your customers today using technology that you couldn't solve 5 or 10 years ago. Second is, how can you use data and machine learning to take better decisions, combining that with domain knowledge? And how do you upgrade your staff in terms of being able to utilize the data to take decisions? And third, of course, you need to look at automation and robotization. How can we basically get more efficient processes also on the vessels? But to me, the number one is to look at what are the problems you can solve for your customers that you couldn't solve 5 years ago.
And can I ask you that question also, Ann-Christin?
Sure,
it's a massive job, massive responsibility you have.
You know, and what we did in TechnipFMC was the same kind of exploration as yours. You know, I was charged to, I was challenged to do a digital strategy for TechnipFMC, a 40,000 people company. So it's quite a large challenge. But the problem is not really creating a digital strategy. Digital for us is just a means to an end. It's not the end. So unless you have a business strategy or where you want to go, you can end up spending I can't say that word, but a lot of money, a lot of money getting nowhere. And I think, so
unpack that for us. What's a business strategy, digital strategy?
So a digital is just enabling your business. And as Lasse alluded to, you have to find out what is the value for the customer. And if you also lose the grip of who is your customer and get this kind of platform in between you and the customer, you're losing out. You need to really understand your customer problems. Then you need to really scope your own output. I found out in our organization, it's a very technology savvy organization with a lot of engineers. They've been so used to following a process, so they would rather go take action rather than talking about what was the end result of that action. Because the main point now with the new technologies coming is that you need to scope what is it that you want to do? What is the output of what you want to do? And then you need to open up and allow new technology to solve that output for you.
Ramez, I can see you wanted to jump in.
Well, I completely agree with Ann-Christin actually that digital is not an end. And so with these companies, if you look at an Uber, an Airbnb, call them a pirate, whatever, they are business model companies, and technology just enables their business model. And their business model really has 2 aspects, one of which Paul Romer was very much against, these strong network effects, but the other was enabling value out of currently unused assets. Right? That's what Airbnb does, that's what Uber did to a certain extent, and that's what Flexport does to a certain extent. So I think that's a business goal that technology can empower, and that's the sort of thing that actually ends up being profitable.
So what are the most common mistakes that companies tend to make when they're embarking on this road? would you say?
I think the number one mistake with large organizations is they underestimate how much there's an immune system. As Ann-Christin was saying, in the middle of the company, these engineers want to do a process. Your company has always worked a certain way. You bring in a new idea, and whether knowingly or not, people attack it, or they slow walk it, they resist it, and that's why we talk about innovation at the edge. When Jobs, I'll just give you one last anecdote. When Jobs wanted to create the iPhone, he already had the iPod. He did not charter any of the current teams in Apple to create it. He created a new team in a separate building on campus. Your badge did not get you into that building, and they were the ones to go do it, because he knew if he created it inside the Macintosh or iPod team, it would just go slower. They'd be in committee meetings all the time. So create a new organization at the edge that could grow to be the new center of your organization.
And did you do that, innovation at the edge then, Lasse?
Yeah, well, eventually we figured out. Obviously, we didn't understand it initially, and I think this is really the biggest dilemma you have as a CEO, because it's much easier to build a new business than transform an existing one. And you need to do both at the same time, right? So we use digital first to be both an internal change maker and to build new business models and services, but it didn't work. I mean, those two processes are so different, both in speed and nature, that you need to allow them to grow in their own pace. At the same time, you cannot give up transforming the business you already have.
One thing I'm really struck by listening to you is this idea of digitization and technology changing the culture, changing the way that the sort of DNA of the business, which I didn't expect this discussion to lead to. Ann?
And that's really true, because it really depends. Any cultural change, single most important factor of that change and the culture change is the leader of that environment. And you really have to kind of open the eyes to executives that what this technology will do to you. When you connect data and when you have full transparency of the status of the situation, your customer, your fleet owner, your ship owner, your Klaveness or whatever, everyone will know the status of the situation at the same time. So how do you educate executives to be, not their traditional reporting, saying, "Oh, report this," and then don't bring me problems, bring me a solution.
Now, when you say, just spell this out for us. When you say everyone will know the status, that means the boss knows the mistake at the same time as the person who's responsible?
Correct.
Okay.
So correct. So you have
what kind of problems does that arise?
So you have an ecosystem now. The business model will be an ecosystem of providers. Everyone will know where the problem is, and they will have to trust that someone's dealing with this. I don't need to call the captain of the ship saying, "Why are you not lossing or embargoing?" You have to really trust your organization.
Are we ready for this, shipping industry? This kind of transparency, what the implications are? It's a big culture change, isn't it?
It's definitely, but that's why you need bold CEOs to set the agenda for the company.
Now, at Klaveness, you're trying to make everybody into a digital native, I understand.
Yes.
How? I'm not sure
They will never become digital natives, but maybe they can become catch up on digital. But now what we did was that we realized a few years back that we need to change the way we make decisions. We are really using our guts, not data and analytics, to make decisions. And then we had two choices. And we saw the new guys coming in. They obviously had this by nature. But all the guys who had domain knowledge did not have it by nature. So how do you approach that? Either you change the crew, or you convert the crew into something new. So we developed Klaveness Analytics Academy, and we're now basically, started with carrots, now I'm carrying a stick to get people.
Everyone has to go back to school.
Yes, everybody goes back to school. Everybody has a personal program they need to follow, and it's really using videos from Singularity, whatever have you, and we have, basically the company is divided into three. 1/3 has not yet understood what we're trying to do. 1/3 are really trying to catch up as much as they can, and then with 1/3 they're just running like crazy. Problem is that they were already running when we started. So the big issue is how do you get that last third up to speed, and if we don't, we have an issue. And I think this is a societal problem as well.
Are we ready for this shipping industry? All of us going back to school to try and become digital natives. Ramez, I'm going to give you the final word. Try and give us some guidance then, in a postage stamp, about how to embrace digital technology successfully.
Well, I think it is having the right people, giving them the right autonomy. I'll give you a watchword from Spotify, actually a great Scandinavian success story. The management motto there is trust beats control. And so for your best people, you need to give them some room to run, and that's how you'll get the new ideas that are the engines of growth for your business.
wonderful way to end the discussion. Ramez, Naam, Ann-Christin Andersen, and Lasse Kristoffersen. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us
Thank
at
you.
North Shipping 2019.